Hello, are we live? Tell me if you can hear me okay. I'm just getting the chat roll open. Somewhere. I can hear you. Brilliant. Okay. Okay. I can hear you. Brilliant. Okay. Close that. Okay. So I'm just going to wait a few minutes before I actually get into anything. Just give some more people some time to arrive. I think there's 4 or 5 people watching now. Just give some more people. That's not good. There we go. Okay, can you hear this, by the way? Is that coming through? Make sure my all my audio connections are okay. Yep, brilliant. Okay. Well, people can catch up because we're 7:05 now. So this is highs, and if you haven't seen it before, you're welcome. This is a tool for building virtual instruments, mainly sample-based instruments, but you can do some synth stuff in it as well. And I'm just going to build a GUI tonight, or part of one anyway. We might link it up to some sound modulators and things like that. This is for a client who's asked me to build a project in highs for them, so it is a real project, and I don't exactly have a plan. I've got an image of what they want it to look like, so I'm just going to go from there. So let's start by making a new project. So I'm just going to the file menu and clicking create new project folder, and I'll turn this webcam off in a bit, I think, because it might get in the way, but we'll see. So I'll make a new project, just make it on the desktop, and for now I'm just going to call it Synth Project. That will do. And I'm going to hit OK, and you won't be able to see this, so I will just have to change something. So I'm just opening the project folder so that you guys can see it. So you should be able to see that folder now. And this is just the desktop, and there's the project folder, and Highs has generated all these folders within the project folder. So that popped up? Yeah, that's appeared now. Good. So what do we need in here? Well, at the moment we don't need to do anything. I don't have the samples for this project yet. The client hasn't sent me them. But that's okay because we're just working on the GUI. What I am going to do is initiate this as a Git repository for version control. And has my screen just gone black? Okay. Okay. Let's not have that. Let's do it this way. Okay, that doesn't look as nice, but it should show everything. Okay, yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, I'm going to initiate this as a Git repository so I can do version control. So just Git init, and now we have a Git repository. So there should be some hidden files in here. There we go. And yeah, that'll be useful later. Now what I'm going to do in Hive is I'm just going to save this as an XML file, and I'm just going to call it Synth Project GUI1 for now. So that appears in the XML preset backups folder, and it doesn't have a file extension. Let me give it a file extension. There we go. So are we getting some screen tearing issues? Let me know if you see any sort of black glitches or screen tearing issues, because sometimes I've seen that and I have to disable some setting in my graphics driver to get rid of that. Right, so we've got a project, we've got it saved. So now we're going to add a GUI front end. So I'm just going to click this button here that says front end panels. And the client wants this. In the end, it's going to be a plugin for Windows, Mac, and GNU Linux. And it's also going to be an iPad app. So we're going to select the iPad preset. Now, I don't know if it's... Yeah, there's two iPad presets. What's the difference? Okay, that's that one, and that is... Okay, no, we'll go for the bigger one. So I've hit OK on that. It's taken me to the interface designer. Now, usually the interface designer just looks something like that, but I have the code view up as well, and the code documentation, which is the API help. So I have that there. And I'm just going to resize this a bit. In fact, I think we can get rid of let's get rid of that for now. I'll make that a bit smaller. Okay, so we can see what's going on. And my webcam's not on there anymore. Oh, I see. There we go. Right, so let's get rid of that. So this is the GUI layout that the client has sent to me, and I haven't actually. This is the second version. I haven't actually looked at this one as closely yet. Actually, is this the second version? This might be the first version. I might have the wrong version. Let me just see. Yeah, I think it's the wrong version. Okay, so in that case, I'm going to just switch to that for a moment. So you can look at that while I find the correct version. I think it must be that one. Yeah, okay. So what I will do, in fact, is I'll take a screenshot of this, and I want to edit it slightly because there's some information on there that the client doesn't want me to make public. So I will just quickly take a screenshot and blank that bit out. Hello, if you've just joined. I see there's more people watching now. I'm just tweaking a file to hide something. Then I'm going to get back to putting this GUI together. So let's just get rid of that. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Right. So change that. Okay. Right. So just give that a moment. Right. So this is the GUI. Now I haven't looked at this version in that much detail yet. So we're gonna have a piano keyboard along the bottom with plus and minus buttons. So that'll be something we can script. That might be the place to start. Mod wheel, pitch wheel, indicators. So a bit like you have in Contact. Envelope at the bottom. Yeah, so we're just going to use the standard highs controls for now, and then once I've finished this, I'm going to send it to the client, and he's going to provide me with the final graphics, so they'll be put in at a later date. So we'll just go with the default controls for now. The only thing I'm noticing is the orientation of this. I don't know how well that matches that iPad template I've got. Oh, I see. Okay, so I've got it landscape, but he wants it portrait, so I need to flip this around. So we've got the dimensions for it here, so I'm just going to change those around. There we go. So we'll start by adding the keyboard. Actually, before I add the keyboard, I'm going to add a panel to enclose everything. So I click this lock button up here, and that unlocks the canvas for editing. And my webcam's probably now in the way, so I will move it to the other side of the screen. That'll do. Right, so I'm going to right click on here and add a panel. And a panel is just, well, it's got lots of functions, but it's basically, in this case, I'm just using it as a container, just to contain all the other controls. And I'm just going to call it main. So I'll just pull this over here, and I'm going to change its ID to PNL main. I always like to put a little prefix so I know what a control is just by looking at the name. So PNL for panel, and I'm going to make it the full size of the interface. So what do we have there? 7681024, and I'll just delete the background color. I'll just delete all the colors. Get rid of the borders, and there we go. So it's essentially invisible now. So now I'm going to add a keyboard, because he wants a keyboard at the bottom. So we'll add, where is it? Floating tile. Okay, so the floating tile is a control we use to add a keyboard. And we just select the content type from over here, and we select keyboard. So that's nice and easy. Now what did he say? Big keys preferred to allow finger playing in the iOS version. So we need to make the keys bigger. So that will be something in here. Key width, can we change the key height? Okay. I can't see a way to change the key height. So I will change it to use the vector graphics though. Flat style, let's see what that looks like. Key width, I don't know, let's change that to 28, let's double it. Ooh, that's gone weird. Let's turn the flat style off. Okay, so that's a bit bigger. It's not taller though, I'd like it to be higher, but I can tell that later. Okay, so keyboard goes down here. Okay. Let's add a sound generator as well, so we have we can test things out. Let's add it so we can have the note numbers displayed on the keyboard, the octave numbers. So I'll just enable that. So that's C0 there. So I'm just going to make the lowest key for now middle C. There we go. So now when I play my MIDI keyboard, it shows up. So that's all right. Default appearance to false, then it uses the floating tile height. Ah, that's Christoph, who he's the creator of highs. Thank you, Christoph. Okay. Keep clicking on the wrong one. There we go. Okay. So that'll do for now. I'll fine tune that later. Let's just add some buttons at the side for the plus minus thing. So, oh, and I'll rename this FLT keyboard. So that's for the floating tile keyboard. Okay, and we'll add a button. No, don't want it there. I want it under that one. Yeah. So this is going to be plus an octave and minus an octave buttons. So this will be BTN oct up. And then I'm just going to press Control D to duplicate that. And call that one BTN. Oops, open the calculator. I didn't mean to do that. BTN oct down. And I won't do the scripting for these yet. I'll do that later. So I'll just resize those, something like that. Plus. Minus. Okay. And I'm just getting the rough layout from that image, and then I can make it neater later on, like put in the mod wheel and pitch wheel sliders and things. All right. So at this point, I'm just going to save, and I'm just going to actually do a little git commit just to show you what I'd do. I wouldn't usually do it at this stage because I've only added 3 controls, but I'd just do something like, well, first of all, I'll do git status and it'll tell me all the files that are untracked. Do git add just to add everything, and then do a little commit with a message just saying added the keyboard. I'll probably just do that. So that's just a little version control thing, which is more useful when you're further into a project. So what should we do next? Okay, for the envelope controls, we've got the standard ADSR sliders, but then we've also got these buttons so we can switch what the sliders control. So do they control the envelope on the first oscillator, the second, or the third, or all of them together? So that will be, there's a few ways to script that, so that'll be quite fun. So let's just make those controls for now. So we just need 4 sliders. And actually I'm going to wrap up all these keyboard controls in their own panel. So I like using panels to sort of compartmentalize different areas. So I'll just call this PNL keyboard. It'll have the octave buttons, and eventually it'll also have the mod wheel and pitch wheel sliders in as well. So when you put something in a panel, so I'm going to put this, I'm going to put the keyboard in the panel, and it'll just disappear. So it's vanished because the XY coordinates, the position on the GUI is, well, you can see here the X is 96, and now that it's inside the panel, that X position is relative to where the panel is. So the panel isn't that tall, isn't that, well, actually, is that tall? Well, I'll just show you. So if I start by changing the Y position, actually, so the Y position is 806, so that's outside the view of the panel because the panel is only 196 high. So if I, oh no, that's the keyboard. The panel is 395. So if I move the keyboard into the, within the height range of the panel, we can see it now. So I'll probably leave that panel about that size. Oh no, I need to accommodate those buttons as well. Okay, I'll make it wider. Actually, I'll just make this panel the full width, since it's going to have full width controls anyway. So 768, and we'll move it all the way over to there. And now we're just going to add those buttons into the panel as well, and they'll disappear because they'll be out of the view. So we'll just pull those up. There we go. That's the minus one. That can go about there. I think these are wrong symbols, haven't they? Oh no, it's just really small. Oh, okay, that's the plus one. So that one should be at the top. That one should be there. And that one should be there. Yeah. And I'll just move this keyboard over a bit to leave room for when I put in the sliders. Something like that. And now I'll move the whole thing down. So this is the beauty of using a panel as like a box to put things in. I can now move all these controls together and put them wherever I want. And if I want to hide these controls, all I have to do is flick this switch up here and they all disappear. So panels are really useful for that kind of thing. I can see actually the border is still on this panel, so I just need to turn the border off because these are default things, borders and colours. Let's turn those off. Okay. Now I've just pressed Ctrl S. I'm going to save the project again, but this time I'm saving it as an archive, which will have a HIP extension. And it's just another way of saving it, and it's a slightly smaller file size, so that saves into this presets folder, and you see it's 5K, and we've got the XML here. Actually the XML is tiny, but this also saves with the GUI data separate, and I think this also saves scripts and stuff as well if they're part of this interface. I think it'll save those separately. Okay, so we need 4 sliders. So I'm going to make another panel, and this one is just going to be called something like PNL ADSR. That's for the ADSR controls. And again, I'm just going to turn off these default colors and things. Okay, and this panel is going to go somewhere above the keyboard. Somewhere like that. And now I'm going to add a slider. So I'm adding this within the panel because I right-clicked on the panel. So you can see over here in the tree, it's already put it within the panel. And we're just going to change this to a vertical slider, which is this one. I'll make it something like 30 wide and 100 high. So that's that one, and I'm just going to rename this SLIA. So SLI for slider and A for attack. And then I'll duplicate that. And I'll duplicate it again and again. And then I'm just going to rename them. So this will be D. That's S for sustain and R for release. And then to line them all up, I'm just going to, how do I do this? There we go. I'm going to select them all, and then these controls up here at the top, these can be used to align controls to each other, so it's really helpful. So there we go. Just makes them a bit neater. Yeah. So I can make that panel a little smaller now. Now I need to change the mode of these. So at the moment they're just going 0 to 1, but the attack is going to be a time control, so I'll just change that to time. And you can see it automatically changes the minimum to 0 and the max to 20,000, and the suffix to ms for milliseconds. I'm going to enable this to show the value pop up, and I'll show you what that does. Now if I click compile, when I move this slider now, we get a little pop-up at the side to show the value, and that can be positioned at the above the slider, below it, to the left or to the right. Let's put it below for now, actually. There we go. So right. So the decay, that's what it is. That's also the time. And S, change that one, and the release. Okay. I might set some default values for these as well. I'll leave that for now, actually. Yeah, I'll just leave them as they are for now. Okay, so 4 buttons above. Now these labels underneath, attack, decay, sustain, release, I don't know if they're going to be part of the client's graphics, so I'm not going to add those yet. If he doesn't provide those as graphics, or they're not part of the background wallpaper, then I'll add them in using labels, and that's just another control. So just select label, and you can type in whatever label you want, and you can use any of the fonts you've got installed, and you can add other fonts. So so we've got all kinds of flexibility with typography for labels, unlike in Contact, although I think Contact has just added, after 6 versions, I think now you can put in custom fonts somehow. So we need 4 buttons above these sliders to select the different types of the different controls it's going to affect. So this will be, now let me see, actually I was going to call this BTN all, but we've got 2 buttons because we're going to have one in the filter as well called all, so I don't want to call them both the same. So I'll call it BTN, I'll just call it ADSR all, and then I'll yeah, I'll call it that for now. I might change the name later. And so that's the name of the control, but the text is just going to say all. And then I'm going to make this part of a radio group. So I'm going to set it to radio group 1, and I'll show you what that does. If I duplicate this, I've now got another button, and this is also radio group 1. So if I click one of these and then click the other one, it will only allow one to be selected at a time. So that's what the radio groups, that's what that function does. Now this may change in the future. I might not do it this way in the final version. I might script it depending on what other functionality I need to add, but for now that's all right. Oh, actually, there's a better way of naming the buttons. Okay, so I'm not going to call it ADSR all. I'm just going to call it BTN ADSR 0. And then I'm going to call this one BTN ADSR 1. And by doing it this way, it means I can grab hold of these buttons in a loop when I come to script them later on. So if I need to store them in an array or do anything through the script that I want to affect some buttons but not others, or I want to affect all of them, instead of having to know the name of each button, I just know it's BTN ADSR and then a number. So that'll be really handy. I'm just going to make these a little smaller for now. Let's change the width. Okay, so that's going to be OSC1. No, I can't see that. I'll just call it 1 for now. Okay. And because these have the same name, when I've duplicated them, highs has automatically added the numbers. So you can see I named 0 and 1, but it's automatically done 2 and 3. So it's really handy. And I'm just going to align these again. I'll move them a bit closer actually. Okay. There we go. And again, they're in this panel, so if I decide to put the panel up there, all the controls go with it and I don't have to realign them to each other. Right. Although I am thinking I made this a bit tall. Now I want to move them all. Yeah, okay, I want to do that. Let's move them all up a bit. There we go. So I just saved there again just by pressing Ctrl S. Let's see. Okay. So let me just show you one way we could connect this up to an envelope. So we've got a simple envelope here, but I'm just going to replace that with an ADSR. Yeah. So you can see the name of this envelope has automatically been set to AHDSR1. So what we can do in this view is if I click on a slider like the attack, I can go over here where it says processor ID and I can select AHDSR envelope 1, and then I can choose the parameter. So in this case I'll select the attack. Is that the right one? Yeah, attack. And if I hit compile now, and if we go back to this view, I'm just going to add the interface as a floating tile so we can see the interface. So if I move this slider, you can see it moves the attack on the envelope. So that's a really simple way to connect controls up without having to do any scripting. It just handles it all behind the scenes. Now in this particular instrument I won't be able to use this technique, at least not like this, because I have to be able to switch which controls, which envelope these controls affect, and using that method I just showed you, I can only assign it to one envelope. So there's a few ways I could do that. I could just put, for each of these I could actually have a separate set of controls overlaid. I could do it through scripting. I'll decide that later. But yeah, there's a few ways I can put in that functionality of switching the modes. So I'll decide on that later though. But yeah, that can be done. So I've done that for the attack, but you could do for the decay and the sustain and release as well. Okay, what's next? So the filter, that's got its own attack, decay, sustain, release. Let's see. So that's a low pass filter with an envelope. Never done that before. Let's have a look. So low pass filter. So we can add an envelope. Now this is to the gain modulation, but will you want it to the frequency or to the gain? Oh, hang on. So we've got HPF, LPF, but that's only on the LPF. So this is something I'm going to have to talk to the client about to know exactly what he wants this control to do. With it being a low pass filter, it's probably going to be on the frequency, I think. Anyway, it doesn't matter. For now I can just add an envelope and just play around with it. So let's just add those controls. So I'm going to move this one over slightly, put it there, and clearly I haven't left enough room for these controls, so I'm going to have to squish it all together at the end, but that's fine. So I need another panel for the filter, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to duplicate this panel because a lot of the controls are going to be the same. So there we go, I'll just duplicate that, and that's strange. Oh, I see what's happened there. Just undo that. Okay. Where are my controls? Oh, I'll just bring them back down. There we go. Right. So this one I'll call panel filter. Oh, now that's, oh, okay. Right, I see what's happened there. There. Okay. Yeah. All right, everything's good. That's all right. So 3 sliders, HPF, LPF, and res. That'll be for the resonance. This little bump. I don't know if we have any control over that. Don't think we can set the resonant frequency. Can we? Oh, okay. We can control that with the Q. So yeah. All right. Okay. So that's what that will control. Oops. There we go. So this one will be HPF. LPF. And res. And currently these are all set up as they were for the ADSR, so I just need to check what I need to change on here. It's going to be frequency, and that one's going to be frequency as well. Now this one, this is for the Q, so that will be probably just a linear. Yeah, it's all right. Let's see, that control goes from 8 to 0.3. There we go, and change the middle position to 1. Step size is yeah. Okay, that's fine. So there's just 3 sliders on this one, and then there's 4 circular knobs. So I'm going to turn this control back into just a regular knob. And oh, that was stupid of me. I forgot these are ADSR controls, so I should have just used the other sliders. Oh well, never mind. I'll just duplicate this. So ADS. Yeah, I'm running out of room. ADSR. So these are the filter controls. I'll give these a really long name for now. SLI filter ADSR 0. Is that what I call these? No, I call these attack, didn't I? Yeah. So I'll just call it A actually for attack. SLI filter. Oh, that's the second one, so that should be decay. Sustain. No, sustain is spelled with an S. There we go. Right, so that's those control cells. Any questions at this stage? Anything you want me to repeat? Anything I didn't explain or didn't explain very well? And I'm gonna have to find some way to fit these controls where they're meant to be. Okay, so for now I'm just gonna make these a bit smaller so they can all fit in. I'll remember what their function is for now. There we go. And yeah, they kind of fit there, don't they? Kind of. What's going on? Ah, there we go. Just move that over a bit. Okay. So after I've done a bunch of changes, I'll hit compile, and it just makes sure everything's working as it should be, and I'll get little errors in the console down here if things aren't as they should be. So what do we have? So on this side we've got some effects and a master volume with a mono or poly switch, and only one of those can be active, so there'll be a radio group set of buttons as before. Then above that we've got a soft synth engine. What do we have? So that's going to actually use one of Heiley's built-in oscilloscopes, I think. Oscillators, probably the sine wave generator or something like that. So that's got an on-off switch. And what do we have? Okay, some tuning controls. Yeah, okay. Okay, it's not going to be a sine wave because we've got an oscillator type. So that'll be like sawtooth, triangle, square wave, etc. And then above that, these two panels that say OSC1, and I assume that one over there is meant to say OSC2, but it says OSC1 as well. But these are going to be used to select the different sample sets. And I guess the idea is you can select two of them and then use that slider in the middle to mix between them. And then the soft synth engine underneath, that's just that's added on top, and that's got its own volume slider, so that'll control how much that's mixed in. And at the top we've got a preset selector. So that will, for this, I spoke to him about this. We're just going to use, well, we're going to do a few things with it, but we're going to use Heiley's built-in preset handler, preset browser, which is really good. Let me show you it. So again, it's just added as a floating tile like I did with the keyboard. And I just select preset browser, and we have a full-blown preset browser with some customizability, change the colors and things like that. And it's really good because you've got, let me just do this. So you can add banks and categories, and then the actual presets go in here. The user can import presets or export presets, and you can set them as favorites, and you can add notes and things. So It's a really full-featured preset browser. Now I'm not sure how we're going to implement it in this particular instrument. That's yet to be decided, but I think we're going to have a button up here that displays the name of the currently selected preset, and then if you click it, it'll pop this up. This preset browser will appear in a floating window. I think that's how we're going to do it. And then we've got this save preset option here as well, so I guess we're going to have a separate save button, and we're also going to have a next preset and previous preset button as well. So it's going to be quite full featured, but I'm going to delete this for now because I'll add that in at a later time. So I guess I should do these two next. I'm just let's see. Okay, maybe I should tidy up a bit so we can fit those in. I'll tidy up later. So let's just close these up for now, so I've got more room to work with. So we're going to need a panel, a slider, two buttons. Now I guess chorus 1 and chorus 2 can be both enabled at the same time, but I don't know. Maybe it's one at a time. But I'll assume they can both be enabled at once. And reverb and delay. Okay, so two knobs, two buttons, and a slider. So I'll start by adding a panel again. And what do you call it? EFX. So slider first of all, and this time it's going to be a horizontal slider. Horizontal slider. What does this slider control? Low, high, EQ, tilt. So I don't know, is that just controlling the frequency? Maybe it's controlling the frequency. I'll set it to frequency for now. I can always change that later. So we'll set it to frequency. Two buttons for the chorus. So this will be BTN chorus 0 and BTN chorus 1, which is already named. Let's line those. I'll do for now. Then two knobs underneath there. And one of these is for reverb and the other was for delay. So these will be really simple to implement because I won't need to do any scripting for these. In fact, I won't need to do any scripting for any of these except perhaps this slider because I'm not sure what it does. So again, I'm going to discuss this with the client because I'm not sure exactly which reverb he wants to use, if he wants a convolution reverb and what reverb settings he wants. But it will be something like this. I'll add reverb, and then I will connect this control. Oh, let's see, what's it going to control? It's going to control probably the wet level. Now you might want it to control, oh, there isn't a dry level, so yeah, because it's not a send. So he's going to want it to control the wet level if it's set up like this, which goes from 0 to 100. So I assume it's going to be like that. Reverb, wet level. Oh, there is a dry level. Okay. Christoph, why is there a dry level? Oh, there's no dry level, is there? So I think there's a parameter there that shouldn't be displayed there, is that right? Because we've got wet level displayed, but we've also got dry level, but it doesn't have a dry level on there. Okay, so that will look something like this. Is that right? Ah, okay. So I've set this control to go 0 to 100 because this goes 0 to 100%, but that's normalized. So I should just be able to set this to something like, if I set this to normalized percentage, change that to 1, I think that's right. Or do I leave that at 100? We'll soon find out. And then, yeah, that's right. So yeah, that's been normalized. It's actually 0 to 1, but it shows up as 0 to 100, and it moves in. What's the division? The step size is 0.01. It's a bonus feature. Freeze button. I didn't see a freeze button. Freeze mode. Oh, I haven't seen that one before. And then the delay. What do we have for delay? Yeah, so we've got a delay control. So I assume he'll want it to control something in here. Now this one, if he wants it to control, for example, the delay time, because there's only a single delay control, I'm guessing he's going to want it to control both of these at once. So for that I would script it because I can't get it to control both at once. There is another delay, like if he wants me to use the gain module, for example, this also has a delay control. And actually, because we've got the master volume here, which I'll probably implement using this simple gain control, we will have access to that delay, so that might be better for him. It'd be easier for me, so I'll have to ask him what he wants for that, but that will probably be the easiest, the simplest solution. It just depends if he wants these like note values with the tempo sync or not. Yeah. Oh, or he might just want to control the mix. I never thought about that. Yeah, if he controls the mix, then he'll need the delay module. Okay, so that's that one finished, I think. Yeah, so that one's finished for now. I'll just try and make a bit more room. There we go. So I'll just stick this out of the way for now. We're definitely going to run out of space. I suppose I could make this keyboard smaller, that will give me some more space. But like I say, I'll sort out the final arrangement of these controls afterwards. But having them in these little boxes, these panels, is so good for just moving the modules around. It also means if the client changes his mind about this layout and he wants to move things around, it's really not much work for me to do so. Whereas in Contact, you'd have to move every single control. Well, there are ways around it, but that's the usual way. So, right, so that's that one. So I'll save it. I haven't taken the border off this one. I'm actually going to leave the border. It actually might be handy for me at the moment. Need to make sure that's in the right control. There we go. But yeah, actually maybe I should have left the borders on all of these for now so I can get a clearer outline, but it doesn't matter. Okay, and I'm going to save it as a preset and do some more version control. So that's just telling me what's changed. So it's saying that the XML preset file has changed. That's the one I've just saved. It's also now saying that these files are untracked, and that's because the presets one is because I saved it as the .hip archive, and the user presets is because of when I had the preset browser added, I was fiddling around in there. So I'm just going to do git add everything, and it don't really matter what I put here because this is just for demo purposes really. Added more GUI controls. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to do the master volume and then the mono poly mode thing, which I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to implement that yet because I don't know if he just wants it to limit the voice count or if there's more to it than that. So another panel called master, PNL master. call this master vol. And for the mode, I'm going to set this to decibel and set it to a vertical slider. Something like that. There we go. So yeah, and then 2 buttons underneath. So that's a nice easy one. So I'll call this one BTN Poly. And I'll just duplicate it and call it mono. Oh, and these are going to be in a radio group so that only one can be active at a time. So I've got both of them selected here, and I can change the property for both at once. At least I think I can. Yeah, so both at once. So yeah, that works. So that mono poly functionality, that'll be something I'll script, I think. I don't think there's a way to just connect that up to a module. Okay, and this is meant to fit down there, but clearly there's not enough room at the moment, so that's all right. Yeah. But once I've got all these controls added, it's then just going to be a case of deciding the best way to connect everything up to all the modulators behind the scenes. And this particular instrument is going to have some interesting sample selection stuff. Yeah, let's just talk about that for a second. So we're going to have banks of sounds. So at the moment we're looking at 40 sounds, so 20 for each oscillator. So there'll be, I don't know if it's going to be the same 20 sounds and then you can mix them, or if it's going to be 20 for OSC1 and 20 different ones for OSC2. But anyway, there's going to be these buttons to switch between the banks, and then you can mix them together. So the way I'm going to do the different banks, I think, I won't know until I get the samples and I can find the best way of mapping them. But I'm going to add a sampler, and I'm basically just going to use the round robin groups and just set it to 20, and then each group will have a set of samples in it. I think that'll work. No, that won't work. Maybe it'll work. Yeah, that'll work. So the thing is, what I'd rather do is, well, not what I'd rather do. What I've done in the past with my instruments is, I'll show you quickly, and I've just saved a sample map. I didn't mean to do that. So if I load up, so here's a brass library I'm working on. And so this way I was mapping the samples. So what I have is I have a load of sample maps set up. So like for the trombone, I've got here's the sustains for the trombone. Oh, that sounds awful. So I've got the sustains in one sample map, and then I have another sample map for the staccatos and the releases, and then again it's the same for the trumpets. So every single one's in a separate sample map. But what that means is when you switch to another one, for example, piccolo trumpet, Highs has to load the samples up from fresh. So it's almost like you're switching to another patch. Whereas what he wants with his his synth is, let me just load that from the archive. So what he wants with his synth is he wants the sounds to be available at all times, so they can just switch between them. So yeah, so I won't want to load them up as separate sample maps. I'll need all 20 in one sample map, and then just when you hit a key, I'll use scripting to decide which group is triggered. So very similar to how you do everything in Contact, because Contact doesn't have a sample map system. So I think that'll work just fine, and yeah, that should be okay. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, so Christoph has pointed out that, let's see, because these are radio groups, no, not those, these ones are radio groups, and I had these also as radio groups. You can see that because they share the same radio group number, all of these, they're all interfering with each other. So each set of buttons need to have their own radio group. So the mono and poly one, I will put those in radio group 3. And these ones for the filter, they can go in radio group 2. And now, yeah, now these don't interfere with each other. So I can change these buttons, and these ones over here are unaffected, and I can change these, and it doesn't affect any of the others. Thank you, Christoph. That is very useful. Okay, so that's that set of controls done. I'll add these two slide. Should I add those two sliders? I'm hesitant to add the sliders for the mod wheel and pitch because they're not going to be standard sliders, I don't think. Mod wheel might be able to, but what I've done before is I've done these as custom scripted panels, which it's a bit more complicated than I was going to demonstrate in this live stream, although it might be useful just to give you an idea of what you can do with panels. I might do some simple examples in a bit, but I'm just going to leave these two controls for now. I'll do this later time. So I'm going to do these this soft synth engine. So 4 knobs and a slider. What's he called it? Soft synth engine. Okay. So again, add another panel. So there's 2 ways to add controls, at least 2 ways. You can right click over here and select it from this context menu, or you can right click over here on like an existing panel and add it within that panel over here. So let's make that bigger. But this drag and drop interface is very nice. Let's call this soft synth. Let's call it that. Actually, that's not a very good name for it. PNL, I'll always call it OSC3. And have I not clicked on that properly? There we go. Oscillator 3. Okay. So what did I say? 4 knobs? Yeah, 4 knobs, a slider, and a button. So I'll add the button first. So this is just going to be an on-off button. This will just be by itself. Doesn't need to be linked to anything else. So that just turns. This is just going to turn this sine wave generator or whatever oscillator we use. So it probably won't be a sine wave generator. Actually, it will probably be a waveform generator or something like that. Something a little more complicated. So yeah, I'll delete that. And this this button will just bypass and unbypass that. So I'll just add some sliders. Hiya, Todd. Good to see you. Thank you for coming along. So I'm just putting together this interface for instrument in highs. So this is going to be, the reason it's this sort of dimensions is it's going to be for an iPad app. It's also going to be a VST, but he wants it in the end to be able to be used on an iPad as well. So at the moment I'm just building this section here where we've got soft synth engine. Right, so this one is going to change the OSC type 1, 2, 3, 4. So he's got 5 modes there. I don't know if that's how many I'll actually have in the end, but let's call that OSC type. And I'll give it 5 values for now, but that might change in the future. And the step size will be 1. So this will just sort of go through each step, each of the 5 steps, rather than being smooth. It'll sort of lock to each one. See? And then I'll just duplicate that for now. Just pressing Control and D to duplicate controls. I'll just call this mod. This is the pulse width modulation. And I'm not sure what value range this is going to have. So I'll just set that to like 0 to 1 for now. And the step size can be, yeah, that's fine. Hello, Soigia Fog 336. Soigia? Soigia? Semitone and fine tune. Okay, those are just tuning controls. That's interesting actually. Semitone and fine tune. Now I haven't done a tuning thing in highs. So is that something I have to script, or is there a pitch module? It might be one of these where I have to do change tune commands to each note. I'll change pitch. So we've got where is it? So yeah, we've got set voice pitch value, so we can set the pitch through script, but I don't know if there's a module for that. Yeah, I got it right. Okay then. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I forgot the slider. I haven't left room for the slider. Let's make this a bit bigger, and I can add the slider. That's enough room. Okay, slider. And what's this going to control? Volume. Okay, that's easy. SI OSC vol. Yeah, that's right. So it's going to be a vertical slider and controlling volume. So I'm just going to set the mode to decibels and stick that over there. Okay, so that roughly resembles this area here. And I definitely don't have room to fit all this in, so I'm gonna have to go in there and tinker about with the spacing of things in a moment, I think. Or I could just hide stuff. I might just do that. I might just hide stuff for now. But I will make this a bit smaller. Have you been using highs, Todd? I think you've been using highs, haven't you? It gives me a little bit more room. Okay. So I said I was going to check something. Oh, the pitch, yeah. So do we have a module for changing pitch? I don't think we do, because there isn't like a pitch thing. It might be an effect. It's not something I've actually looked for. I could just ask Christoph. Hopefully he'll answer anyway. Let's see. Nope, not seen it in there. You can add a pitch control for like pitch wheel and stuff down here, and I guess you could do it through that, but you can't really get fine tuning values on it. Oh, actually no, I guess you can, because it has, yeah, it's got this for semitones, so I guess you could just use that. So that would work. I'd have to script the control of that, because I'm going to have more than one sampler. Basically, anything where I need one of these interface controls to control more than one module, I have to script it, because each of these can only, using the built-in property assignment thing, you can only have it control one module, but if I script it, I get it to control multiple modules. So I think for that pitch thing, if I use the pitch control modulation thing here, I think I'll have to script it, but these sort of things are quite simple to script. In fact, I'll show you how I'd script that now. So just because I've been doing this for long. Oh, the transposer does that. Oh, okay, so I don't have to script it. Where's the transposer? Is it in here? I've not seen a transposer. Where's the transposer? Is that a script? Is there a script already in here to transpose? Where is it? Legato? It's not in there, it's not a script. Oh, there it is. It was right there. So it is a script though. Okay. How does it work? Is it working on the MIDI note? Is it using the synth set pitch value? Is that how it works? And can you set it to smaller increments? Oh, great. I've lost my chat scroll thing because Google Play Services has decided to update. Alright, let's just open YouTube. Okay. No, just the same as the message set transposer man. Ah, okay. I see. So let's see if I can get that back up now. So did I ask this, can it do fine tuning? Can it do less than semitones? And let's set that back to, oops, no, I want that one on. There we go. There is a message set fine detune which allows sub-semitone. Oh yeah, I use that for doing my legato transitions. So, why isn't the transposer in the hard-coded scripts? Why is that separate? Is that just, should it be in there? So yeah, so I could script that with the message set fine detune. Okay. So yeah, so I could have an overall tuner script, couldn't I? I could put it up here and that'd be all right. So yeah, that seems like the simplest way to do it. I was thinking actually of putting a tuning script in my orchestral libraries I've been working on, because I thought it's just a handy thing to have. I know some people like if you recorded an orchestra in Europe, or they might be using a different tuning to say an American or a British orchestra, so you might want to tune your virtual instruments to match. Right, but what I will do then is, I was trying to get out of making more of this interface because I'm getting bored, and I don't want to do all these buttons. It's lots of copying and pasting. Okay, let's make this bank over here, because this is essentially a duplicate, and so I'll just do the one. Now this has got semitone and fine tune as well, so this, oh I see, so he just wants it to tune the synth. Ah, okay, well in that case the synth has its own tuning controls, I believe. Let's have a look. Now that's the wavetable, don't want that one. The waveform. So yeah, detune, octave. Yeah, so I could, yeah, that's sub. Oh, that's in Synth. Okay. So it goes to one semitone up, down, and he wants it to go plus minus 5. And I just realized you can't see that other screen, so let me just pull that up. I'm just trying to pull the chat roll back up on my tablet. There we go. So I don't have to have it open separately on here. And now if I go back to screen capture, okay, so now we should be back. So yeah, so what I was saying is, here in this oscillator section, in both of them, they've got their own semitone and fine tuning controls, which are separate to these. So those I'll put a separate script in here for the fine tuning, because we only have a semitone control here. And yeah, and then I'll have another one in each sampler for each of these. So that'll work out all right then. Okay, let's add that bit that I have been putting off. So I don't really have enough room, I don't think, to fit these controls in, but I will try. Now I didn't check if this bank A, and I guess that should be bank B, but I didn't check if these are... Oh, I get it now. Right, so that's the selected button and that's the unselected, so this would be two buttons. So you can choose which one has bank A and which one has bank B. I think that's what it is. 17 to 32. Right, so and each bank has presets. So, well, I say that, but should that be a drop-down menu? Should it be a button? This is the sort of thing I'm gonna have to discuss with the client to decide the best way to do that, because we've got all these buttons here. It might be better just to have a drop-down menu. Although on an iPad, I guess it's nicer to have buttons. So now we can decide that later. Right. Oh, and this octave control. Didn't I see an octave control on the waveform generator? I think I did. So yeah, so those buttons will just link straight up to another one. What am I on about? I'm mixing up the sampler and the oscillator that we're putting in. So so that will be separate then. Yeah, okay, that'll be separate. Right. So I'm going to design it the way he's got it there, but that may change in the future, and the final instrument may have drop-down menus or knobs or something instead of all those buttons. But we'll stick with the buttons for now. Yeah. So that's the panel for it. And let's call it OSC1. Okay, 20 buttons, a button at the top, 3 buttons there, 3 knobs. Okay. So begin OSC1. So this is like that one, it's just going to be a bypass button for the sampler. And perhaps it'll purge the samples as well. I don't know if you'll want this to also purge as well as bypass the sampler. I mean, if you're bypassing it, you might as well purge it to save a bit of RAM. So, and then we need 3 buttons for the octave thingy. Now let me see actually. So it's just -1 and +1. That might actually be better with a slider or a knob. I know he's got the buttons there. I'll put it in as buttons for now, but I think I'll suggest to him that we do that with a knob, with a slider instead. And these will be a radio group. So I'll set these to radio group 4 because I've used 3 radio groups so far. So that'll be, yeah, so -1, 0, +1. So we OSC1 oct down. I might have to change that name later on, but that'll do for now. Oct down, oct up, and oct 0. Okay. Yeah. If you purge it, it's the same as using a sample map. Oh yeah, but I don't know if he wants this one to load in live, like, because I'm guessing you just press that if you're not using it. But for these other buttons, these are just switch with the group. So yeah, that. I'll have to talk with him and see how he wants this to function. But yeah, I see what you're saying. What else do I need on there? Oh, 3 knobs as well. Pan, semitone, fine tune. Okay, yeah, I've got just about enough room to fit those underneath. So this one will be OSC1 pan. What? What did I press? I pressed something. OSC1 pan. Yeah, that'll fit there. That's close enough. It'll be alright. And then this will be, what do you call it, semitone. And fine tune, come here. Got ya. Okay, fine tune. I actually quite like this size for the layout. I don't know if I think maybe it's a bit tall for sort of general use on a computer, but let's refresh that. But I don't know, it's got quite a lot of room. It's quite nice. I think if I was doing it for one of my instruments, because I don't make things for iPad anyway, so that's not an issue for me. I think I'd do it a little bit shorter. I think maybe cut it off about there, but I might adopt that larger size because I like how much room I've got to put all these controls on. Yeah. All right. So yeah, so now it's just these 16 buttons. No, not 16 buttons, 20 buttons, and this bank 1 to 16 thing. I actually have a note from the guy, so just in case this note shows things he doesn't want me to reveal, I'm just gonna have a look at it. You're gonna look at highs, I'm gonna look at this note and just see if what other insight he gives into those controls. Oh, he actually says about that OSC button. I'm image creating This instrument is essentially 32 multi-sampled presets. That's from a vintage synth. The presets multi-samples are loaded by dialing the main knobs. Well, he had knobs in the original one. So it's the buttons under OSC1, OSC2. Users can choose between two banks, bank A or bank B. So those must be buttons then. Multi-sample presets can be layered, and the additional oscillator OSC3 can be added to the mix as well. OSC3 is generated through the sampler's internal synth engine. Okay, so it does look like those are just bank select buttons, which is alright. It just means I've got to make 16 buttons. But no, it's not 16, it's 20. I keep saying 16 because I see 16 up there. 20 buttons. Alright, that's what he wants. We do 20 buttons. I'll see if I can fit them in here. So what I'll do, I'll make the first one and I'll name it how I want it, and then the rest of them will just auto name. So I don't know what to call them though, because they're not banks exactly. Bank A 1 to 16 programs. Let's call them programs, because I suppose the program number is BTN OSC1 program 0. And these will also be in a radio group, but they'll be in their own radio group. So these will be in radio group 5. And then I'm just going to duplicate it 20 times. And each time the number at the end will automatically increase. So now it says BTN OSC program 1, and then if I duplicate it again, it's program 2. So that's really handy. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I can duplicate multiple controls at once, but I'm just going to do one at a time. And then when I come to script these, again, because they have the numbers at the end, I can just grab them all in a loop. And I'll show you that actually after I've done this, because it's really useful. So those 5, nope, those 5, just align them. And these 5. These are not perfectly aligned in the columns and the rows, but it'll do for now. Okay, there's our little grid of buttons, and so this is to choose between the banks. Now you see he's got bank 1 to 16, so I'm guessing, so is it, maybe these are drop downs, because I guess you choose a bank and then each bank has 20 programs, something like that. I'm going to leave putting in these bank things because I'm not 100% sure if they should be buttons or drop downs. His notes aren't 100% clear on that, so I will need to ask him about that. But let me show you how I'd script to get control of all these buttons. So I'm just going to make this a little smaller. Oh, did I set these? Yeah, they've got a radio group, okay. And it's different to those, yep. Which is different to all the others, yep. Okay, that's good. So, what am I doing? I want that to be smaller. Okay, so if I wanted to grab all these buttons and put them in an array so I could do something with them, what I would first do is I would declare an array, which would be const var, and then I give it a name. So I'd call this btn osc1 programs. So even though this is an array, I put btn for button because I know it's going to contain all these buttons. So it just means as soon as I see it, I know which controls it relates to instantly. And it's going to be an array. And we can actually reserve array space, but I don't think it's necessary at the moment for this because we're going to use it straight away. So I'll just leave it as an array with no size defined. And then I'm going to make, then I put a loop. Oh, we'll have a little variable called I, and that's just going to count around a loop 0 to 19. So that loop's just going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way up to 19. And then what I want to do is every time that loop goes around, I want it to grab one of these buttons and put it in the next element in the array. And there's two ways I can do that. I can put the name of the array, and then I can put the square brackets, and in here I can put I. So I's going up 0, 1, 2 each time, and it'll grab the button and put it in the next one. So that's one way to do it. But if I don't want to specify I don't want to specify which index, I can just do .push, and it'll put it in the next one available, and then I put the name of the control in there. But because I know that these buttons go from 0 to 20, I'm just going to use I, and then I'll put equals content.get component, and that's the command to grab an interface control or grab a reference to the control, and it's called btn osc1 program. And actually I'm going to change the name of that. Instead of programs, I'm going to say program because that's the same name as the button. And then I'm just going to put plus I. So that does what's called string concatenation, where it takes the value of I and sticks it onto the end of the string. So it's not an addition, it's not mathematical, it's just taking the number, so 0 or 1 or whatever, and putting it onto the strings to make a complete string. And semicolon the end of that, because we need semicolons in this language, which I will not call JavaScript, I will call it high script. It looks like JavaScript, but it's not JavaScript. And then I hit compile and hope I don't get any errors. Yeah, compiled, okay. So now this array has references to all those buttons. And that means if I want to do anything, like if I want to turn on all those buttons, I can do it within this loop, or I can do a separate loop. I could just go, I just reference the array, and then whichever index I'm referencing, so in this case 0, it will reference the button on the interface. So if I put I in there, and I don't know if this will work because I've got them in a radio group, so they might just all explode or something if I try and turn them all on, but let's see. Yeah, so it won't do anything, I don't think, because we're in a radio group. So if I change that to 3, will that work? Set value. Oh, what have I done wrong? Is that not how you set the value of a button? That's how you set the value of a button. Set value 1. Why is it not working? Do I have to call the change command? No. Christoph, why is it not working? Help me. Isn't it set value, or is it just set? No, set value. Save in preset is true, so it overrides the values. Oh yes, thank you. Yeah, that old one has come back. Okay, so this green light that's here, this green circle that's next to all these controls, means that the value of each of these controls with the green circle is persistent. So it's like persistent variables or persistent controls in Contact. So it means these controls are persistent. So after the onInit callback completes, after the I hit compile and it triggers the initialization callback, after it completes, it goes through and it finds all the controls that have the save in preset option enabled, and it gives them the values that they last had. And that overwrites anything that I'm doing here in the onInit callback. So for this demonstration to work, I have to disable that option, which is just this button here, save in preset. Hit compile again. So there we go. Now the right button is enabled. It's really handy having Christoph here to get me out of these problems. And yeah, now they're all enabled. Except the last one. Why is the last one not enabled? 0 to 19, 0 to 19. Oh. The last one is called 19, so it's going to have to... There we go. Yeah, yeah. So I did 0 to 9 to less than 19, which obviously means 18, so I need to do 0 to less than 20. So that's fine. Okay, so that was just to demonstrate that, but I use this all the time, and I'll be using it when I come to connect up these ADSR controls behind the scenes. I'll be using it for these these buttons here. I'll be using it because they're numbered 0 to 3, and the same with these ones here. So that'll come in handy for when I need to reference those in a loop. Now I need to duplicate this, so I'm just going to press Ctrl D, and yeah, I don't have quite enough space to fit both of these on. Now what's interesting here, and this is a really good feature in Highs, is everything gets auto named. So you can see I named this panel PNL OSC1, and this one the duplicate I've made is being called PNL OSC2. And all the buttons have been renamed, but unfortunately they're not renamed quite the way I want them. Oh, and also I need to re-enable that save in preset because my demonstration is complete. So I will just re-enable that. There we go. But yeah, they're not named quite the way I want them because I don't want them to say BTN OSC1 program, because this is for OSC2, so I need to rename those. And did I move all these controls? I didn't mean to. Just move those down a bit. There we go. So, okay, it's messy, but I think I've managed to fit on all the controls except these three here, which I've got room for those. Those can go in this area here. Is something missing from there? No, I don't think anything's missing. So I can rename these quite quickly if I select them all and hit J, and this brings up the JSON editor, JSON, J-A-J-S-O-N, and behind the scenes this is how Highs keeps track of all the settings I'm changing over here. It has them in this format here, which is an object. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take that out, I've just copied it, and I'm going to open Atom, which is a text editor I use. It's quite similar in many ways to Sublime Text, only that it's free software, whereas Sublime Text is proprietary. But you can do multi-select in here, which is handy. So so all this where it says OSC1, if I just press Alt F3, I can just change that to OSC2 for every single one. So that is good. OSC2, up 1, down. Yeah, I don't need to say down 1. I don't need to say up 1. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that. And don't need that. Okay. And then all I've got to do is these numbers. I don't need to say program 20 because it's starting at 0 again for this one. So I'm just going to rename these. In fact, I can just go like that to select every instance where it's got program followed by 2. Oh, except that one. I didn't want that one. Oh well, never mind. Let's just delete that. And then 30, 31. Okay, do the same there. And then get rid of that. Oh, and put a 1. It should be, yeah. 13, 12, 11, 10. Now it should be 9. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's all of them renamed pretty quickly. It's faster than doing it in within highs. Oh, and I should change the radio group as well. So again, I'm just going to hit Alt F3 and change all of the radio groups to 6. So that's a little faster than doing it in highs. Use a script panel for the matrix. This way you can automate it as plugin parameter. Oh, right, yeah, so I could have a I see what you're saying. So have a separate panel within this panel for the matrix. Right, so all that I just did is for these controls. So I'm going to hit J and replace that and just check that I've got that correct, and hopefully it won't explode. And I hit F5 and I think that all worked. All these buttons have been renamed now. Compile, yeah, okay. It's a good time to save. Save as XML. And I'm also going to save it as the archive format as well. I keep it in both formats. Check the link, I've made a snippet. Check the link. Oh, okay. Let me just do that. Where's the link? Check the link. I'm not seeing a link. Oh, did you post a link in the chat and it got censored or something? I'm not seeing the, I've just gone to the Highs website as well, I'm not seeing a link there. It wouldn't surprise me if YouTube censored it. The pastebin link, no, I'm not seeing a link. Can anybody else see it? It wouldn't surprise me if YouTube is censoring it. I'll see if I can change the settings. Because I did see some link censoring or something censoring settings. Oh, okay, you sent me a message, yep. Thank you. I'll do it. I'm just going to this link, guys. There we go. So Christoph has posted a snippet. So Heiley snippets are, let me just copy this, are a great way to share bits of Heiley's code or Heiley's projects. They're like a little snapshot that you can just post on a forum or wherever you want to post it. And then you just paste it in. So I'll just make sure I've saved that. So now I don't want to start a new project, so I'm just going to go to File and import Heiley snippet, and this is a bit of code that Christopher sent to me, and it will load in the whole setup. Aha! Have you just written that? You have. That's very impressive. Hang on a minute. This is all one panel. How did you do this? Okay. Well, there's only one control. How does this work? So you've divided the panel into a grid with clickable areas based on the mouse coordinates, is that right? Number of columns, get values, yeah, okay. So event clicked, so you get the mouse coordinates. Okay, so that is a much nicer way of doing it than what I did. So this, when I mentioned earlier that panels are incredibly useful, not just for putting things in compartments, but also for making custom controls. This is the kind of thing I was on about, but I wouldn't have thought of doing something like this. This is very nice. Well, it's a very elegant solution, which I will promptly steal and add into the project I'm working on. So I'll see if I can walk you through this. So we've got a panel control. This is the only control on the interface. So a single control. And Christoph has defined the panel has an object called data, which you can put whatever you want in basically. So he's defined columns and rows and columns, so a 4x5 grid. And he's defined this here so that he can use it later on within this other bit of code. And this is all the code that's needed for this whole thing with the interaction with clicking and whatnot as well. And my webcam's gone off again. Not that you need to see me, but I'll put it back on anyway. So I come back on. I'll be on in a second. So where was I? Yeah, so a panel has a thing called a paint routine, and I'll show you a simple example of that in a moment. And this is actually quite a simple example as well, but not so simple for a beginner necessarily. So a paint routine, basically the panel can be treated as a canvas, and you can draw on it or write on it or create graphics on it and do various things with it. And you do this within what's called a paint routine, where you get access to some special graphics functions through this object, which is called G. That'll become clear shortly. So all he's doing here is getting the width and the height of the panel and dividing it by the number of columns, which is what he defined up here, and the number of rows. So that would mean that I could resize this panel, I'm guessing, and when I hit compile it should, yeah, so it scales, so you can have the panel any size because this is taking that into account. So that's really nice. This is such a nice feature. I'm definitely going to have to use this in all sorts of applications. So this will be really nice for touchscreen. And yeah, it'll scale up because it's vector, yeah. So, oh, that's so nice. That's so nice. I wish I'd thought of that. So we've got little variable I. I equals 1. Don't know what I is doing yet, but we'll find out. Be doing something. So we've got a loop going around the number of rows and a loop going around the number of columns. So that's nested loops, one inside the other. And then R, what's R? What is R? X times the width. Oh, okay, so X is the loop iterator, okay. So this is just drawing this grey box here, and then it's writing the text. So this is basically going through this grid that he's created, defined by those rows and columns, and the width and the height of the box, and the width and the height of the panel, and it's creating these little, it's drawing these boxes, and it's saying, this bit here is saying if I equals this dot get value, and this refers to what does this refer to? This plus 1. Oh, this refers to the panel. So it's saying if the value is 1 plus 1, if I equals this dot get value plus 1. Oh, okay, so that'll be set down here in the mouse callback. Then it colours it, it fills in the rectangle. And if it isn't that, then it won't bother filling in the rectangle. So that's why you only get the grey rectangle where you click. And then he sets the colour to white and draws the text. And then this part down here, this is the mouse callback. So controls like buttons and sliders and things, they all have control callbacks, and a callback just is an event that's triggered when a certain action happens. So with the panel, you can have a few different ones which are defined somewhere here. Allow callbacks. So you have different callbacks available here. So he's set it to click and hover, clicks and hover. So we've got the mouse click callback. So when it detects that you've clicked the mouse, it will calculate the column number and the row number based on the number of columns and the number of rows, which is what he set up here, and the width and the height of the panel, which is determined over here. And then event.x and event.y is the mouse coordinates. And those coordinates, I seem to remember, are relative to the panel. So the top corner of the panel here will be 0, 0. And the bottom here will be whatever the width and height is, I guess. Value equals 1 plus row ID. Right, okay, now I see what's going on here. So where we were back in this paint routine, and it's got I equals this dot get value plus 1, he's setting that here when you click the mouse. He's saying basically which square it refers to. And then he's setting the value here. So there he's calculating the value, here he's setting the value, and then he's calling the dot changed function, which triggers the paint routine of the panel, and it updates and redraws everything. And that is an incredibly elegant solution, and much nicer than my 20 buttons. But yeah, that's a great solution. So this is the sort of thing. So I'll put this, I'll show my client this. He may be watching actually, and this will be the kind of thing I'll discuss with the person who's doing the graphics, because this obviously has an implication for that. Because we could just overlay this on top of the graphics. But yeah, that's a really nice solution. I like that a lot. Okay, so what I will show you now, since we're looking at paint routines and panels and things, I'll just show you a quick example with a panel. So I'll just make a new file, and we'll add a little interface. And I'm just going to put a panel on here. Okay, so this is where we can draw vector graphics basically. So I'm going to get, I'm going to right click on this, says create script variable definition, and that basically uses that content.get component that I used earlier to grab all those buttons, and it just does it automatically. So we've got a variable called panel1 which has a reference to the panel, and we're going to set a paint routine for it. So panel1.set paint routine, and the paint routine is going to be a function, and we give it the parameter g to give us access to the graphics functions. And I've just hit F5 then, and the panel's still there, but now that it's got a paint routine, it doesn't automatically draw the border. So we have various commands for the graphics stuff. So if I go into the API help here and type graphics, these are all the commands we have available for drawing. So so let's start with setting the color. Let's like fill in the panel in a solid color. So we'd look down here and we've got fill all. So graphics.fill_all, well, ours is just called G, so it's g.fill_all, and then we have to give it a color, and this is like a hex number, so you do 0x, and then you've got to define the alpha, that's the opacity. So if I put FF, that's maximum, so that's a solid color, and then you've got red, green, and blue. So I'm just going to do this bright red, so just FF 00 for the green, 00 for the blue, and I'm going to hit F5, and now we get an incredibly bright red. Let's dull that down a bit. I'll just put like 10. Yeah, so I've got a sort of greeny colour now, and there we go. So that's how you can fill in the panel any solid colour you want. Let's get rid of that. Now let's draw a circle. So I'm going to set the colour for drawing things, which doesn't mean it's going to set the colour for the whole panel. It's just going to set the colour which will then be used by the next commands. So it's like pulling the, it's like saying you're going to use the white pencil. So you grab the pencil that's white, or the red pencil, or whatever. So let's set this to white since we've got a sort of black background anyway. So it's just set color, I think it's set color, and it's the English spelling of color, the proper spelling of color. And we'll set this to white. And then I'm going to draw a circle. So what I've written here is G dot, and then I'm going to press escape on my keyboard, and it actually brings up an autocomplete. And I'm going to select draw ellipse, and the area is an array. So it's going to be an X, a Y, a width, and a height. So with the top corner of the panel, that's up here, being 0, 0, and let's see how wide is this panel. So I'm just going to make it 400 by 400 for now. So we've got a square panel, square canvas. So I could do this at like 200. I put an X there, that's going to be Y, but anyway, 200 by 200. So that means it's going to start drawing from there, from the center. So it's going to be in the bottom right corner. And I'll give it a width of 50 and a height of 50. And the line thickness, this is a floating point number, so you can do like 1.5 or whatever. Or you can just do 1 if you just want 1. I'll give it a line thickness of 3. And I'm going to hit F5, and this is going to draw a white circle in the bottom right corner. Oh, well, off to the right of that panel. So slightly offset. Now, because what we can do from within the panel, we can refer to the panel itself. So the panel can query itself for various parameters. So if we want to draw a circle in the middle of the panel, no matter what size the panel is, we can just ask what is the width and the height of the panel, and then do the appropriate calculations. And we do that using the this keyword. So this refers to the panel that we are currently writing the paint routine for. If we had another panel and we wrote this, then this would refer to that other panel. So I'm going to do this dot. Now I think there's some helpful functions for panels. So let's see. So just get width. So there's get height and get width, but I don't know if we can use those like this. Let me just check. Let's hit F5. Oh, okay, we can do that. Okay. So I'm getting the width, and I'm going to divide it by 2, and I'm going to get the height and divide it by 2. And that's just going to draw the circle we had before. Now we know this circle is going to be 50 by 50, so if we divide 50 by 2, and take, which is 25, and take that off this as well, so go minus 25, then I think if I've done that correctly, it should draw the circle right in the middle of the panel. Is that right? Let's see. Yeah. So that's because we know the width and the height. Now what we can do is, if we know that our circle is going to be a particular width and particular height, we can do what Christoph did and set the panel data control, panel data object to have some other values. So panel1.data, and data is that object that it has that you can put anything in, and I'm going to say circle width, just give it any name I want, equals 50, and circle height, actually that's going to be a bit long to type out, so I'm just going to call it H and W, but we'll remember that it refers to the circle. And then here where I've got 50, I'm going to put this data.width and this data.h for height, and if that's done right, it should just do the same as what we've already got there. And I've got an error, cannot assign to this expression, line 5. Do I have to put var or something? What am I missing? I've missed something. I can't rewind to my earlier in the video. Have I not defined those? Is that what it is? Do I have to define those first? Do I have to do that? That can't be right. No. Well, I'm doing something wrong with accessing the data. Ah, that's it. It's panel, not pane. There we go. Simple typo. So we're going off the line here a bit, so I'll make that a bit smaller so we can see it. So what I can do now is, where I've got this minus 25, instead I can do data.width divided by 2, and here I can do the same thing, dot height divided by 2, and I'll leave we won't worry about the line thickness for now, that's always going to be 3. Actually, I think we can make this go onto another line. I think if we do that, I think it'll still compile. Yeah, so we can spread the code over multiple lines if it's easier to read. So now it'd be good actually if I colour in this panel just so we can see it. So g.fill all. What colour should we do it? Just black will do, won't it? Just so we can see it. So now all I have to do is change these two values up here, and it will always draw a circle in the middle of the panel of whatever size I put here. So if I change that to 100, it will always be dead center, and it will just draw it appropriately. And I can just keep going. This one will be bigger than the interface, bigger than the panel. It doesn't change the line width. We haven't set anything in there. I mean, we could set the line width to scale. That'd be fun, I think. Let's just experiment with that. Let's see what happens with this. Yeah, okay, so now the line width will scale, but it's going to be massive because I'm taking the time to calculate it. And if I do a smaller one, the line width gets smaller. So panels are really useful for drawing these vector graphics, and because they're created through these mathematical points, they scale perfectly. There's no blurring or pixelation if you make it smaller or bigger, and that means your end user who has access to these controls to change the size of the interface can scale the interface to suit their to suit their preference, and your graphics won't get messed up. So it's really useful. Also, if you don't have any separate graphics, you can design just right in highs, and you don't have to worry about importing graphics files. So I love the paint routine feature of panels, and what I've done in my project is I actually took all the paint routines and I put them in a separate file and just imported that file, so I had access to them all. But there's loads you can do with them, and you can do custom sliders, and if you do mouse interaction through the click events and other callbacks, you can do buttons, drop-down menus, sliders. Christoph made a 3D rotating head. You can do all sorts of things. So panels are really powerful and really useful controls for all sorts of purposes. So I'm going to go back now to panel 1. Sorry, I just saw that you spotted my mistake. Yeah, panel 1. Typos. They're always the problem. So I'll go back to this project now. So all my buttons here, which I was so proud of. I was so proud that I renamed them all in Atom so quickly. I'm going to get rid of all of those and use Christoph's panel because that was a much better solution. But yeah, so I'm just thinking the best way to do that. So I can get rid of this code because that's definitely not needed now. And I'll save that. And then I'm going to open, I know what I'll do, I'll open another Highs project, another Highs window. So you can have multiple instances of Highs open at once, which is quite useful. And then, ooh, that's blurry. And then here's that snippet that he sent me. So I'll just import that snippet. Does not contain a valid snippet. Why not? Snippet. Import Highs snippet. There we go. So if you make something in Highs and you want to share it with other people, just like a module or a demonstration, like this kind of thing, just go to Export, Export as Highs snippet, and then go to the Highs forum, create a new thread, and then when you paste it, type, now this is the key that is next to the number 1 on my keyboard. But you type 3 of those, you hit enter, and then you paste your snippet and the Highs, and then hit enter again and put another 3 of those. So it looks like a quotation mark, but it's not a quotation mark. Like I say, it's next to the 1 on my keyboard. It's like a little accent sort of mark. Anyway, you post it on the Highs forum, but put it in between these little accenty marks, and then the forum will automatically format it like this, because if you don't put it between the accenty marks, oops, what happens is you end up with all this being posted in the thread, and it makes it untidy and it's not as easy to select and interact with. Okay, so yeah, so I'm going to steal it, reappropriate this. Appropriate, there's a word there that I'm trying to grasp for. And the best way to do this is just to make a panel on my own version. And I'm just going to hide these panels of shame for now. And I will add a new panel. Script panel 1. And then, oops, that's the one I want. Now we'll just copy Christoph's code that he's put here, and later on I'll put this in a separate file for later on in the project. I won't keep it within here. Panel 1. Now the component is called script panel 1, so I'll tidy this up later, but I'll just put it in like that. Hit F5, and now I've been able to implement Christoph's code straight into mine nice and easily. And why is it not letting me click it? Oh, it's because there's other hidden controls over the top. Is that why? No, that's not why. Script panel 1. Oh, I've got to set the callbacks. That'll be why. Yeah. Clicks and hover. There we go. So So you can see it's really easy to steal to use other people's code within your own projects, which is why it's good to get on the Highs forum and share your code, so that other people can benefit from the things you do. So now I've got this, and I can resize it to any size. I can just drop it within one of these. So I'm going to delete all these buttons because they're no longer required. Did that delete them? Yeah, just a bit slow there. Okay, and then put that in there like that. Make that visible again. So you see, now that Christoph's shown me this way of making a collection of buttons in a panel, I'm going to be using this in lots of other places where I would perhaps have used multiple buttons. I don't think I'd do it for these. I don't know if there's much benefit to that, but maybe there is if I want to, especially if I'm interested in doing it in the same sort of style as this, because that's it's really nice, like a little it's very sort of touchscreen friendly, this approach. I think I quite like that. So thank you again, Christoph, for that. That will definitely show up in lots of work. I'm going to save that and save that. You need to set the callback level. There's a delay in the YouTube, so I see your response just a second after I've worked it out. But yeah, callback level, that was what it was. Oh, and I'll delete all these buttons and duplicate it again so that I can, yeah, get rid of that. Now I'm going to duplicate this panel which has all the fancy buttons, which when I click compile will reappear, and put it in this panel, and then I'll need to redo this code for, that's interesting. Okay, so what I'm going to do, this will be quite fun. So I'm going to take this panel, this script panel 1, and just duplicate it, and I'm going to put it in here. Now the thing is, if I hit compile, you see the buttons still appear in this one, but they don't appear in this one because this one now has a different name. It's called script panel 2, and our code only refers to script panel 1. So I'm going to make another one of these thingamajigs, call it panel 2. So now I've got a reference to it, and I guess for now I can do this as well. So I'll duplicate these data variables. I'd probably change it to be sort of just have one, because there's no reason for me to duplicate this. But anyway, so this function, this graphics function, I can actually take out and have separately. This will probably need to be the same, so I'll duplicate that for panel 2. And actually that's a function as well, so I could, yeah, okay, so I won't do that actually. So what I'll do is I'll create a function, inline function, I'll call it button, I don't know, I'll just call it button callback for now. And oh, it's a mouse callback. Can I do that? Can I do that? I think I can do that. You tell me, Christoph, you keep me right, and if I'm doing something that won't work, tell me before I do it. So I think I can do this. And then, I don't need that twice, let me get rid of that. And then where I've got this set mouse callback, I think I can just set it to this function name here. I think that'll work. And I'll be able to I'll just hide that with comments now and hit compile. And no, it doesn't work. Okay, so I can't do it. Oh, maybe it's because it's an inline function, is that why? Will it work now? Ah, okay, so it's because it's an inline function. Yeah, that makes sense. So So now I can set this for the second panel as well. So now I can just use this one callback function for both panels. I haven't done the thing to draw the panel yet, so there's nothing in there. But when it's there, this should work. check your PM. Check my PM. You're sending me more things. Inline function. Oh. Hang on a second. Let me do that while I read this. Why is nothing coming up for you guys? Oh. Let me close that. And open that. Okay. Oh, that's just showing off. Yeah. I see what you've done. Yeah. Okay. So what Christoph has done is made what is known as a factory. So watch this. I'll delete all this. And this is his factory that he's created. And this factory produces panels with numbers all over them that can be clicked. So I'll hit compile, those numbers will disappear because I haven't assigned anything. Now all we have to do is call this function, which he's just called make. We can give it a more descriptive name later, but he's called it make. And we just put in here the name of the panel. So script panel 1. And if I hit F5, all the buttons reappear and it's fully functioning. And now I can do the second one, script panel 2, and that one's fully functioning as well. So what Christoph has done here is basically there's now, when this function make is called, it first of all grabs a reference to the panel, which is what we were doing before, except we were doing each one separately. Grabs a reference to the panel and it uses the name that I've given it, the name that I've told it, so script panel 1 or script panel 2 in this case. And then it sets the number of rows and number of columns in the data parameter, in the data object. So again, it's the same as what we were doing before, but now it's automatically doing it for whichever one we give the name to. And then it's just setting the paint routine as we were doing before and setting the callback as we were doing before. But now it means you can do it for as many panels as you have. So so screenshot this if you want it, if it's not posted on the forum. But so this method, this factory method, is really useful for all kinds of GUI stuff. So I've got, if I pull this up on GitHub, let me find it. Oh, you can't see this, hang on. So now you'll be able to see this. Give it a second to load up. So this is a repo on GitHub that I've got, and if you go into the libraries, the libraries folder, I've got this one called UI Factory, which I haven't updated for a while, and it probably needs some updates. But in here I've got basically it's what Christoph just sent me then for panels. So I've got a load of these factories. So I've got one for creating buttons with certain settings, and what else have I got? If you want to make a combo box out of a panel, you don't need to write the code because I've done it all already. It probably needs some. There's probably improvements that could be made, but I haven't revisited for a while. And I've got there's mod wheel code, which I think came from Christoph originally, and there's one for pitch wheel as well. So that's what I'll end up using in this particular project that I'm working on anyway. So yeah, these factory functions are really useful for all kinds of things, but mainly for just generating GUI control stuff. Right guys, what time are we on? 9:30, so we're gone for 2.5 hours or so. So do you have any final questions or anything? Because I think I'm getting ready to wrap this up. Have I done everything? I think I've done everything on the GUI except for the slider in the middle and the preset named things, but they're just labels, and that's just one slider. So I suppose I could add that slider, just go in there. But the next time you see this will probably be, when I can speak, the next time you see this will probably be when it's released, which I would guess would be early next year sometime. But the GUI this is essentially complete enough for me to finish off all the coding, and then it's just a case of swapping out things graphics wise when the designer sends them over to me. But I don't really have to add any more controls to this interface other than those few. But what I would expect is before this is released, there'll be some changes made. I've got to add the preset browser, but there'll be new things that will appear that I won't have shown here, because as we go through the build process and the testing, we'll find new features we want to add or things we want to take out. It's always the case. There's always changes to be made. One thing I will show you is it's another floating tile, and these floating tiles are a great feature of Highs because they add lots of, where have I added that? There it is. They add lots of generic functionality which most people will want, and they're not like they're not fully customizable, but you can customize everything through panels anyway. But I'm just hiding everything except this tile I've added. So they're not. It's not like you can customize everything unless you can write C++. Then you can go in and customize everything. But they give you loads of flexibility, and you've got a whole load of choices here. But one I like in particular, and is it a floating panel? I bet I've come in here now. It's not in here. No, there it is. Custom settings. So when you give your instrument or your effect to a customer, a user, you can add a button that pops up this panel and gives them control over the various settings. So it's just really handy that this is already there. It's already built in. You don't have to code this, and it'll work automatically. And some of the settings you won't want, and you can just turn them off here. Like if you don't have any sort of tempo syncing stuff, you can turn off the tempo syncing like that. And you can also have it turn off from within your script, and the script can detect whether it's running as a plugin or a standalone, so you can show the appropriate settings depending on what platform the instrument is running as. So it's a very handy thing to have, but you should explore all of these options. The About panel is very useful for just displaying info about your project. Keyboard, performance meter, MIDI sources, that's good. Just extra settings for MIDI devices. You can also set MIDI channels that the instrument is going to respond to. You can have a tooltip panel. I don't think it's any, I haven't got any controls with tooltips, but if you have tooltips, they can show up in this panel. MIDI learn, that's for customizing. If you assign hardware controllers to knobs and sliders and things, you can they'll show up in this panel. Audio analyzer, waveform, filter. The MPE, that's the, what does that stand for? Multi-polyphonic envelope. It stands for something fancy. This is for things like the Rolly blocks, the Rolly C board. So you can have controller data for every single note, basically every single key. So yeah, lots to explore there, but you should just go and download Highs. It costs nothing. It's free software, as free as in freedom, and it's free as in price to download and play around with and create something. And there's there's a lot of help online. There's documentation, there's video tutorials, most by me and most out of date, but there's some useful information in them still as well, I think. But the forum is the best place to get help, and also the interface. Everything in the interface has is there to help you. Like got API collection, got patch browser, and you can customize the interface. So so when you get it, it won't look quite like this, but if you click this plus button here and then you right click, you can set what you want to add. Now sometimes I add these and they crash, but that's because of my operating system. But so like if I add script content, I can actually see the script here. Actually it's the script content, so it's the GUI. But so I can, that's actually really useful. I might use that. I've never used that before. But yeah, so you can customize the interface how you like it. And then if you want to totally customize it, you click on this one and you have a completely blank workspace, which you can customize in a million different ways. If you go to view, you can add a floating window, which you can also customize. So if you want, I don't know, you want script content again, I don't want that, same one. If you want live variable view, so you can have a live variable readout just floating around, and you can save these pop-outs. You can how do you do it? There is a way somehow to save them as well, if I remember how to do it. Export as JSON, that's it. So you can export and you can load these layouts if you save them. You've got a waveform view for when you're loading samples and you want to map samples. It's just like, there's so much to explore, but it's all here to help you. And there's little tooltips all over the place. Like, I don't know if there's any in this panel, maybe there is. Like if you hover your mouse over this and look up in this corner, every time you hover your mouse over something, a little tooltip pops up to tell you what it's about. You've got the user manual for the scripting built right into highs, and it's all searchable. If you want to know about buttons, type in button and there's everything you can do with a button. So just go and grab it, play around with it, and ask questions on the forum if you've got any issues that you can't resolve it. And I saw a minute ago that somebody had just posted something on the forum about panning or something, so I'm going to go and have a look at that and see if I can help them, if Christoph or somebody else hasn't beaten me to it. But any questions? I see there's only 6 people watching now, so I guess there's probably no questions. But if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them. I'll wait a couple of minutes just for the chat to catch up. Oh, and I'll do some self-promotion while I'm waiting. So in my last live stream, in my last live stream, I was saying how I was working on this instrument. I was actually editing samples for Brass Library, but this was the instrument I just finished. So this has now been released. You can get Sophia Woodwinds at librawave.com, and that's how it's spelled, librawave.com. And this is available now for, it's on a discount for the next few weeks. And anybody who buys it will get updates and stuff for it for free. I'm not doing paid updates or anything like that, but there are some updates I've already got in the works coming out for this. There's a brass library to follow this up, which is what I've been working on most recently, and that'll be followed by strings and percussion, and there's some other bits and pieces coming out in between, some other libraries. I've got an effect that I'm working on, an FX plugin, and I'm also going to be transferring almost all of my contact instruments that I've currently got on my extant audio website. They're all going to eventually be transferred over to highs, and they'll appear on librawave.com as well. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any questions, but thank you guys for watching, and if you do have any questions, put them in the comments below. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, all that kind of thing, and get on the highs forum and ask questions, and I will see you next time. Now, how do I stop this thing? Ah, there it is. See you later.